and the sensor here senses it. Once it senses how much it's risen, it turns the compressor back on, opens this back up, and pumps refrigerant back through it. Right? So in this refrigeration system, the compressor turns on, turns off, whatever it wants, whenever it calls for it, because it's so random. It's not like an air conditioning system where it turns on for like 45 minutes and then off for 20 minutes or whatever. You know, and this one, it will maybe turn on for a minute, shut off for 30 seconds, then turn on for another 2 minutes, and shut off for 5 minutes, and then turn on for a minute, and then whatever. It depends on how many times that freaking dishwasher guy keeps running in there to grab tomatoes instead of just grabbing it one time. You know what I mean? He keeps on opening the fridge, and you keep now having to turn on the compressor. Or some guy that wants to go in there and wipe his face off and cool down because he was hungover the night before. That's what I used to do. Okay, so solenoid closes when the compressor turns off. It's all still on the liquid line. We still haven't reached the low pressure division side, that part where it divides, right? Which is right here. When we go through one of these, right? You have an automatic expansion valve, which works on how much pressure. It only works on pressure. Which maintains a constant pressure. TXV, which maintains a constant superheat by sensing the outlet of the suction line. And the capillary tube, which is self-explanatory. Capillary tube. Right? So, high efficiency, standard, and special, custom. Depends on what you need. Right. This one, some TXVs can be adjusted, like this one here. This one is an AXV, and this one's adjusted with a wrench. You increase the tension or decrease the tension, turning it. Right. If you increase the string, then it requires more pressure for this thing to open.
Which is the most popular one?
This one probably. Or, I mean, it depends. It depends on the customer base. You're talking about like rich people or people that just want AC. People that just want an AC, it's this one.
Oh, okay.
People that want to save money and they listen to your whole spiel and how much it's going to cost.
Spend money to save money.
Yeah, exactly. You always want to offer the best that you can do. If you're doing your own stuff, you want to offer the best. All right. Okay, so we got carried away with it. All right. So, lastly, if it passes through evaporator coil, comes through the evaporator coil. This is a crankcase pressure regulator. What it does is make sure that only a certain amount of pressure is allowed to come into the compressor, right? So it holds back anything. If it's too much, only allowed this much. So imagine that as like the refrigerant bouncer, right? Only this much allowed to come through. Right? So it comes through here. That's a bypass. So if you don't want it to come through,
you can say something about the 2 yellow wire here. What is those?
It's connected to the compressor. Turns off the compressor when the pressure gets to a certain point. It's the pressure cut out. Right. So now where was I? It comes this way, that way, this way. It comes and wraps around that heat exchanger, right? Or it goes straight through, doesn't wrap around. Comes down and into the accumulator. The accumulator is built like a U, but at the end of that U, it's cut off. There's nothing. It doesn't connect to that. So that it comes and overflows, and then the refrigerant. Only the vapor refrigerant comes out and into the compressor. Right. This one's actually really low on refrigerant. So let's take a little field trip to my classroom. Hopefully, not too many guys in there. A whole bunch of guys. A bunch of you guys.
It's a nice toy.
You like it?
I do.
Okay. Hold on, let me go over there. Don't scare them.
It's my like somebody I wash clothes. Like somebody I wash clothes. It's fabric softener.
You can stand over here. Fill in the gaps, guys. Alright. First thing, who wants to get their fingers dirty? Go ahead, it's red. You know how that one goes?
When the breaker is stripped due to overcome stream, the breaker is shot a short
Nope.
position in the middle.
Yeah.
And then it's not all there.
Sorry.
So see.
Beautiful. Alright, let's turn her on. So you're gonna put that blade in right over there. Cool on the thermostat. Turn it down. Way down. Don't see a problem?
What's why?
Gets up when the pressure's not moving. Hey, Brooks, right? Did you grab my clamp? My blue clamp? Thank you. Okay.
Did you put the blue cap for the suction line?
That's the one. Okay, so there's two different ways you can charge the unit, right? You have to find out what's the metering device to figure out how you're going to charge it. For this one, what's the metering device? What kind of metering device? Can you see?
You see that?
Huh? Anyone know what type of metering device it is? TXP. How do you know? Because there's a sensing bulb, right?
Yeah.
See a sensing bulb. TXP works with a sensing bulb, right?
Yeah.
So this air handler has a TXP. So for that, you have to charge by the subcool, right? The subcool is taking, remember what I wrote down? You're taking the liquid saturation temperature, subtract it from the actual temperature of the liquid body, right? So if you look on my gauges, come on over here. Press my button on it. Oh, yeah, take that. Engineer.
45 is number 6.
Alright, clamp that on the seat. Liquid body.
So every time you get the TSB valve, every time you see TSB valve, subcool.
Subcool, yeah. Subcool for TXP, right? So this one over here has a piston. Or cap layer 2, however you want to call it, but it's a piston, right? Orifice, a small little hole. It doesn't have a sensing pole, so this one you have to charge by the super DC. For most of the time, whenever you charge by subcool, rule of thumb, get it between somewhere 10 and 12. 10 degrees subcool, cool, good to go, right? So, turn it on, hold it down. Okay? So you grab the temperature right now. My gauges, I like to call them dummy gauges, because you don't need to really know how to do air conditioning if you have these. Anybody knows how to do it now. Reads every single refrigerant, put it on, you open it,
How much is cost?
$1,000.
What?
100?
yeah, see, that's the thing, you don't. It does the math for you. Right? So that's the number right there. 8. Right? So, but if you did it by yourself, you would need to read it like this. Switch it. Liquid saturation. Okay? It says it's 285 psi.
Oh, 285.
Yeah, the pink side, yeah. So the pink lines up. The temperature is 92 degrees. 92.5 might get down to the decimal. Right? You subtract, you take the temperature of that liquid line, and then the temperature here, the temperature here, and minus the temperature of the liquid line, you get your subcool. So if we have an 8-degree subcool, that means the temperature of that liquid line should be something like 86 degrees.
Does it mean one now? There's a
10
picture
degrees, yeah. 8, 12, so you can get there.
Video me and video in front. So
It's a really hot day, go on the higher side.
let's visit my YouTube
Really cold
page.
day, go on the lower side, 8 degrees.
Visit my YouTube page and you'll get the video.
Regular day,
I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna work it live with you.
and really hot day means hotter than 95. Because 95 degrees is how these condensers are supposed to work. Right? The condensers are supposed to be able to run in 95-degree weather. If it runs in a hotter than 95 degrees, then it's not meant for that. It's not really. It can still take it, but the way that you get all these numbers on here, where it says FLA, full load amperage, block rotor amperage, all that, they base that on running these units in 95-degree weather. So full load amperage is it's working at its hardest in a 95-degree ambient atmosphere, right? If it's hotter than 100 degrees, they have to take that into effect. So when you look at your FLA, if it's a couple amps over, then, I mean, it depends on what you're working on. It can't be more than 1 amp over. If it's like decimal points over, then you got to make sure. Is it like 110 degrees outside? Oh, it is. So that's why it's a couple decimal points over.
Okay.
Right? But if it's 95 or 80 degrees and it's a little bit over the FLA, then something's wrong. Right? Then something, the condenser coil's dirty, so it's running too hot. Maybe the evaporator coil is dirty, something like that. Right? Okay, so right here, we're reading a saturation point of 93 degrees.
93.7.
Right? Does anyone have their meter with them?
I left mine in the car.
Okay.
What is still on?
Does everyone understand? Don't worry about it.
The meter.
Does everyone understand how to read subcool? We're all good?
No.
Right. So you see how that temperature clamp is clamped on that skinny pipe. Right? If you were to take this wire and instead of plugging it into my gauges, you plugged it into your meter, you would read the temperature of that pipe. Right? The temperature of that pipe is, I'm going to say it's
What line? That suction line?
Liquid light.
about 7, so let's say 7 degrees less than that. So it's 86 degrees. The temperature of that liquid line is 86 degrees. When you look at your gauges, it's 93 degrees. That means the condenser managed to cool the refrigerant down 6 degrees.
That's the pipe and the refrigerant. It's 93 degrees. You're reading both right here.
No, you're just reading the pipe. Yeah, this right here, that 93, that's just the temperature of the refrigerant at that pressure. So that's like looking at the chart.
Okay.
Right? So at that temperature, it's that. At that pressure, it's that temperature.
Well, you don't have the pipe
That's
pressure on
not
that.
doing anything right now.
The pipe, okay.
Right? That's not doing anything until I switch it into that setting. Right? So when I switch it into the setting, right here, it says subcool, SC, right? 6 degrees. That means we've cooled it down 6 degrees.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
Alright, now I'm gonna show you guys a little magic trick. Alright? I gotta get some ice though. Let's get some ice. I got ice.
Why is it operate as something? No matter how cold it should be. So why is it something when there's no heat in it? This is the one we know. This is still something, right? This is still something when you're inside, that is something heat. The heat outside. Yeah, you put it in here. I think it's put it in here. Put it in sucking heat. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's not so bad because it's outside. There's not much heat. Right, that's something.
But you know it's gonna be outside. Also, heat is on the temperature outside.
Yes. I like daytime, but when I go outside, I feel like you're really, really hot. Yeah. Some cool, put some ice on it and it cool down.
Now we saw putting 4%.
It's going down.
We're going now. This one is for the hot peppers. We mean the hot peppers. Yeah. They put it in here.
Need a meter like that. Need a meter like that. I run about how much now? Around 3 grand.
Yeah, about 400.
400.
That's how much it's sold.
$400.
That's what he said. Yeah.
You serious?
Yeah.
I thought it was more expensive than that. I thought it was more expensive than that.
We can't get one of your payment more, man.
You said about 400, right?
Sounds good.
So if you want to pay more or nothing, let them know we can get one and can pay me more fee.
We need an earplug. We need a earplug. Phone something.
Wireless one, you know?
Yeah.
Can't get a farmers and easy. Can't get a farmers and easy. How much money have to spend? Can't get a good one farmers. Can't get one who come down. Or you can get one who look like the iPad then. 50. Yeah, let's look for Amazon, man.
That it's too hot, it opens the valve, sends more refrigerant in. But let's say the opposite. Now look at watch the gauges on the low side, pick them up and show them to everybody. Right? Watch what happens when I dunk the sensing bulb in a cold glass of water. It should stop the refrigerant flow. Right? Because now it's like, oh crap, that's really cold. So let's stop putting refrigerant in there. That low side. Hold on, wait for it. It takes a second for all the refrigerant to start to migrate.
No, that's going up, right?
There it goes. The low side, yeah.
That's going down,
Right?
right?
Low side starting to drop because now it senses, oh, that's really cold. We don't need that much refrigerant in there. So we're going to stop the refrigerant flow coming into the evaporator coil. Right? So, what I'm doing here, when I'm showing you guys how to do this is how you diagnose a TXV.
If it's
Literally,
working.
this is it.
If it's working.
If it's working. This is how every technician does it. You grab an ice, your Wawa drink, whatever you have left in there.
No.
Do you need spare
Not
some
my
ice?
water drink, nah.
Well, get some ice. Because the water needs to be 32 degrees. That's why this isn't really working the way I want it to. Because it should be getting lower than that. Right? But this isn't 32 degrees. If you have 32 degree water, which you get when you have ice in the water,
Cold, yeah.
right? It brings that pressure down to something like 100, really low, right? So as long as you see that,
I mean, it's
right?
working.
Then it's working. If I take it out and it starts to increase, then you know it's working. If I do that and it doesn't do a thing, it's broken. Right? Really simple way to diagnose. Bulb into the cold water.
Cold and ice.
Yeah, now hold. Yeah, if you hold it in your hand, now it should increase. Made it think that it was cold. But there's no electricity.
Going up.
So I don't
It's going up now. Well, what,
122, 120 something, right?
Put it in his nose. Looking too much for that. Pressure's going, right? Pressure's coming back up now, yeah. Okay, so if you switch, if you see the subcool setting,
Yeah.
that's 6,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So what do you think? You need more or do you need less refrigerant?
It's
How
good.
much? What do you do to increase the subcool? How many say more? How many say less? It's more, yeah. You want to put more in to get a higher subcool. Here's something else that you really need to know. As you add refrigerant in, your subcool goes up, your superheat goes down. As you take refrigerant out, your subcool goes down, your superheat goes up. Right?
Because that's what happened now when I go too.
So,
While we were taking it down, that one was going up. The other one was going up. The superheat was going up while that was going down. So we have less refrigerant. The heat
you
goes.
gotta be really careful around here. If I touch that electrical coil, heater coil,
Yeah, this one.
even though the
this one
heat's
is.
not on, if you look in your wire diagram, line 2 goes straight into the heater coil and has nothing else, right? It's the only thing that's stopping that whole circuit is the heat sequencer, not sending line 1 through. So once lines 1 and line 2 are connected, the heat comes on, right? But if I touch that coil, there's one leg going in there. I could be the other leg by touching the coil like this, because I'm touching this, which is grounded, right? There's a ground wire that's touching the chassis of this unit. That's grounded outside, so that electricity now is going to go through my finger, through my body, onto this. So you actually, what you feel is that whole thing coming through, and then the shock pow comes off your hand. Right? I felt it too many times, especially right here, right? And I kept on working because, you know, when you're stuck in an attic and you're laying down like this, like imagine this, but you're laying down, and you have to get this tape here, right? The one underneath, actually, it's facing sideways, so the tape is right here. This is underneath. You really got to lie down to get this one here, to get it creased up. And when I'm getting this back one here, I don't know how it happened, but I was getting electrocuted over and over, trying to just go like this, every time I put the tape on, it just I was sweaty and it was wet, and I don't think I was gonna help. Right? I was just wet, getting electrocuted. Of course, probably you do it with the unit off if you want to do it the right way, but it was so freaking hot up there. I needed to turn the unit on and cool down the attic space. So I turned it on, let it run, came out the attic for like 20 minutes, came back up. It was like 80 degrees in there. So this is definitely a lot better than 125. So I could work with this. So I kept it going, was taping, and it kept getting like. No, actually. If the coil turns red, then the coil should never turn red. That means it's getting too hot, right? The air blowing across it should keep it like that. If the coil turns red, then the coil gets damaged. Right? And that's what that right there, that tiny little thing is the limit switch. So that makes sure that it doesn't get too hot and it cuts out the circuit. Right? Yeah, you put it in here. Put a blanket on it. Do that. It's code required by Florida state law to have a heater coil inside every unit, right? They actually, it was the code, heating was legal, was necessary, was the requirement for all domestic houses down here before air conditioning was, right? Back in the 50s, heating was required, not air conditioning. And air conditioning still, I don't think is really required. I think it's required for tenants, but not if you want to own a house. You don't really need an air conditioner. It's up to you, right? But you do need heat. That's a requirement. You actually do need heat.
It should be the opposite here.
Yeah, over here, yeah, right?
You feel that way, but yeah. But it actually heat's the requirement. It's the cold can kill a person just as bad as the heat can.
But we don't get that from
Yeah, that's true. They used to.
Okay.
Okay, so the next thing I want to do, everybody knows how to charge by subcool now. We're all good. We're going to run through it one more time. It's the liquid saturation point minus the temperature of the liquid line. So that's the temperature you read on the gauges, on the high side on the gauges, minus the temperature read on the liquid line, that high side pipe, right? Now we're going to do superheat. Some brave soul get their fingers dirty and take those gauges out and put them on that equipment.
Oh, me again? I put them on somebody.
When you start pulling it off, you gotta commit and keep doing it.
Gonna burn, but keep
Don't
going.
let it, and just use your 2 fingers. Don't grasp the whole thing, or else you'll freeze your hand. Just use your 2 fingers on the nut. That's it.
Turn.
Liquid line is bad.
Anti-clockwise.
The big pipe is not so bad. The small pipe
Right
is
down. Yeah, keep going.
Oh, man.
I'm going to jail.
$80,000.
You see, you guys are going to get gauges that have low loss fittings. So when you twist it off, it's a no.
Right.
Just like that. And then you have to drain it out from the other end of the hose. So the refrigerant's still trapped inside the hose. Alright, now, Goodman. Covering yourself there? Watch out.
Fix what? This one, yeah.
No.
Did you hear what it was doing? Did you see what it was doing?
Each time it starts, it just blow the fuse. Sorry, it just blows the breaker, so I figured that the temperature was probably too high or it was a lot less.
Well, if it flows and it doesn't get a chance to go at all, then the first thing you need to check is the line short of the ground. That's what was up. So you know how to test it, right? You can even just take this, take that off if you want, set the pin to because it's got that thing right there. If this wasn't here, it wouldn't be ground, then it doesn't matter. But because that's tied to the whole chassis, it is ground. Right? Because this takes it eventually down somewhere to a pipe that's dug deep down in the ground. Right? That's ground. Right? So you can take it from the pin to the ground, or sometimes you can even take it from the pin to the body of it on the pipe. Sometimes works, but if you chisel away the paint, scratch the paint away, and then touch it, and you get a beat through it, then it's grounded. Yeah,
It was grounded.
the winding's touching this, right? Which is touching this.
Turn it on your shot, right? So that way?
Well, that's what the ground's for. That's what right away it trips the ground.
That's
It trips
exactly
the
what was
breaker.
happening, and we said it,
Right?
you know.
Blows out the content. So what we did, because I didn't want to give it away right away. I told them what to do. I said I'm trying to lead them to it. So they turned it on, pow, and it wasn't this one, it was that one over there. But it went pow right out the bottom of the contactor. And so their first thought was contactor's screwed up. And in my class, I don't, I just let you go, do your thing, fix it. So they didn't ask me. They just went, they switched the contactor, popped it back in, pow, exploded. I'm like, all right, fine. Now I'll bother the teacher. I'll ask them. Something screwed up. They didn't want the, they wanted to fix it themselves. So they came through. It's not working. I said, disconnect the compressor and then turn it on. Bam, everything turns on. The fan turns on. The thing turns on. Everything turns on. Right? Made them think, okay, it's not the contactor's fault. This contactor's working with the fan. The compressor's out of the question now, and it's working fine. So problems with the problems with the compressor. So they ohmed out the windings. They saw all the windings were connected. Everything's good. They're like, the compressor's fine. Right? So then I told them, ohm to ground. Go there to ground, beep, beeps, bad. Can't do anything else. Got to change it up after that. Right? The bad things that you can get, you have an open winding, shorted winding, or a short to ground. And when you're doing a warranty call, you're going to be writing that on the warranty information. That's like the only thing they want to know. How is it broken? How? If you're warranting this, how, and what way is it broken? So we can test that, right? So when they get that motor, they see short to ground. When they test it, crap, he's right. Okay, right? Then we'll send it to them.
Before they replace it, they got to find out how it's dead, right?
Yeah, it has to be dead, or else if it's not, then it's coming out of your check.
Oh my
Right?
God.
Is that one connected? All right, turn that one on now. When's the next break? When's the next break? I don't know when it is. 50? When the last break?
It's not yet.
That was the one you were working on. Is it connected properly, Alex?
Is it connected properly? Yes.
Oh, good, good.
Nice side, left
You see the plug in the back? Is it plugged in? It is? Oh, you gotta make it hard for me, don't you? Gotta make it hard, huh? Oh, you gotta make it hard for me. Oh, wait. Alright. I need a meter. Who's got a meter? Anybody? You guys are the worst. You got one? Mind if I use it? Alright. Sweet. Saves the day. Hey, look, guys. Troubleshooting. Right in front of you. Let's do it. Okay? It's not working. So the very first thing we're going to do is test the power. Right? Oh boy, these are brand new. Spin on it a little bit.
We just got
dirty.
We just got
Drop it on the ground a couple times. Never you get any respect with this clean sense. Even those creases are still in the wires. Jeez.
The first time we used it.
I remember one time I went for a job interview for an AC warehouse, and I thought, they want to see a guy in the field, so I showed up with my worst pants. I mean, oh, like torn up, paint, tattered, mastic on my, it's everywhere. Like, and then a clean collared shirt on top. Like dirty pants, clean collared shirt. So I'm like, I do work, and I had busted up boots and everything. They said no. So get out of here. Okay. Ready? We're gonna go. Line. Oh boy, who fired this thing? Alright, well, it looks like this is the. Where's the power? Right here. This is the power. So we're gonna go right here. And right there. we should read 240 or 208. Sorry, there's 211. There it is. That passes across the fuses and goes right here and here. You don't see a problem there?
Yeah.
It says 10 or 12 millivolts. So I'll lift that up. Lift that so everyone can see. Here's what I got before. 211 volts. If you look at the top there, it says V. One big V. That's it. Nothing next to it. Just a V. Now when I go across the fuse, when it goes past the fuse,
It says 1.
it says 12. You see the little m?
12.9.
On you guys' meter, it says little mV. That's millivolts. That's 1,000th, 11,000ths of a volt. Alright? You get that? You know what I mean? So if you took 1,000 millivolts, you get 1 volt. So that's 11 millivolts. Just 11. So that's not anything. I could do that, like that, and nothing. That's good. Right? So, give me that one over there.
Dead fuse.
It's one of my bugs. Alright. Wires off. We're gonna lose this guy's meter. It's his first day. This tube, same thing, everything off. Everything off the condenser. Good practice. You don't want anything to drop in there. Ready? You're on now. She's live. There she is. Okay. We need this thing right here.
What do you need to tell if it's lower than 24 then it won't work?
It just needs the full amount of voltage.
How much?
Within a 10% tolerance. So if the motor says we need 230 volts to work, then you need at least 10% more than that or 10% less than that. So 10% of 230 would be 23. You take 230 minus 23, that's 207. So you need at least
a little bit of
207 volts to power this thing. 10%.
Either way.
Right, for every motor out there, it's 10% tolerance level. Right? Yes, that's what I want to look at. Okay, so on this one,
Mr. Adams,
hey,
terribly sorry to interrupt.
hey, bro, how you doing?
Yeah, I haven't seen you in quite a while.
Yeah.
How you been?
Good.
Terribly sorry to interrupt. I have 2 ladies over there who want some patients. So if you have any victims that you'd like to donate,
It's alright. You don't run, don't run. You want to be a victim? Come on, then. Would you mind explaining? Maybe you could explain. 2, 3. Don't look at me. You look at you guys. That's up to you guys.
I was told that they're going to be doing blood pressures.
Why you offer? It's good to know if you don't know your blood pressure. What they offer? You want a blood pressure test, anybody? Yeah. Go ahead.
I don't want to miss anything in the class. That's a bad part of it.
Alright.
They
Oh,
can
I'm
do it
afraid
while
of
I'm in
woman.
class.
That's what you got.
No,
I'll
no,
catch
I
up
miss a
to
class.
Okay, buddy. Okay, so we're doing a different unit now. This is a heat pump, actually, but don't mind that. We'll just think of it as an air conditioner that has an orifice as a metering device. Okay? So if it has an orifice as a metering device, this guy's got the information we need. If you look at the charging information, you'll see this on every piece of machinery, right? If you really want to get real fancy with it, you look at this and you charge it. But if you want to just do it the way most people just do it, then you get a superheat somewhere around 12 degrees, right? But if you want to do it the right way, this is what you do, okay? You get your indoor wet bulb and your outdoor dry bulb. Those are the 2 readings that you need, okay? Instructions tell you right here exactly how to do it. Cooling mode charging with a piston or cooling mode charging with a TXV. This one tells you got to do it with the subcool, and it eventually says allow unit, blah, blah, blah. Subcooling at the liquid service valve should be 7 to 9 degrees, right? So if it has a TXV, this one needs to be 7 to 9 degrees, somewhere in there. On this one, it says, for the piston, allow unit to run for 15 minutes. That's what you got to do first. Measure the superheat. If you guys forgot how to do it, it tells you how to do it right here. It says superheat is the saturation temperature from the pressure measurement subtracted from the actual line temperature. That's what we've been saying, right? And then it says the last two things. If the measured superheat is less than the value that you read in the table below, then you have to recover refrigerant. If the superheat is more than the value, then you have to add, right, to get it to the right spot. So the value you find right here is your target superheat. That's where it needs to be, given the outdoor temp and the indoor temp, right? Indoor temp also takes into account the humidity, because the humidity does hold on to a lot of heat. You got to turn that vapor into water and also turn the temperature of the air down too. So you have to account for the humidity outside. Inside. But the temperature outside, that's just the temperature of the air, right? So for instance, in here, what we would do is we would take the temperature inside. So you'd look at the thermostat right now, because the condenser is right here. So this is outside, right? 75. So the first reading, the first one is right here. So 75. And now indoor wet bulb, you need a special instrument.
Psychrometer. Humidity.
Psychrometer is something that measures humidity in the air. Or you can just get one of these things. It's a temperature sensor with a sock. That's the same thing. That little thing right there, there's a sock on it. You wet the sock. Once you wet the sock, you put that in the airstream where the air is coming to get conditioned. So that would be the return, right there. So, someone wet this for me? That little cup over there. The wet bowl. We call this the wet bowl, right? Dry bowl. Dry bowl. Just this. Dry bowl, nothing on it. Wet bowl. Well, what this does is, as the heat comes across it, it determines how cold it is by how much water is evaporating and what rate it is evaporating. So now it takes the temperature. Yeah, right. That's why there's little clip here. Little clip. Take this. Clip it. Right.
Explain everything. How could you explain one?
Good to go. So now in mine, we have that chart built into my gauges. Right? So this is what you do in this setting, in this different setting over here. Put it down. Okay, we're going to set this into indoor wet bulb, right? It says indoor wet bulb, that says outdoor dry bulb. Outdoor dry bulb, indoor wet bulb. So you put this one on the side, right here.
Dry bulb on the right.
Press enter, and it starts rating. There it is. 62.
62 will do.
Clip it right where the air is passing. So it's as close as you can, yeah. Right, so we're getting 62 degrees, and we got 75. So now go back to the chart that you had. You got 75 outdoor, and you have 62 indoor. What's our target superheat?
9. Which would be between 9 and 11, so around 10.
What did I say before? Get it somewhere like 12 and you're golden. So yeah, so that's kind of close. And then if you look at that, it also says it could be +2, it could be -2. So as long as it's somewhere within the 2 range, then you're good. Right. That's why 12 is usually the number, right? It's usually pretty good, right? But if you want to get it dead on, 9. That's it, right? So that's dead on. Now my gauges, they do that. If you don't have that, which you're not, I'm sorry, you're not going to have this, you're going to have that. And if you don't have that, well, if you don't have that, then there's a special way to do it. I got to write that down. So there's a formula. There's a math formula for that. Right? Here, you want? I'll throw it there. But let's do this one first. So on my gauges, you would just put in the indoor wet bulb. And if you grab that other one now, that one right there. Now you would have to do this before. You'd have to go inside, get the indoor wet bulb first,
then come outside, hook up the gauges, and then you got your outdoor drive. So now you press enter. Right there. This one. Now it's reading outdoor drive hole, right? And now you press enter here, and right down there it tells me my target superheat. So on the unit knows best, right? My gauges don't know as well as the unit knows. But according to my gauges, it says my target superheat is 14. Right? Given that it's 61, but this is a little more exact. That's a 61 degrees and 75. Before we were reading, what is that, 61 or 63 or something?
75.
But the indoor wet bulb, what were you reading?
Yes, it was 75. The indoor was 62.
63. So we're at 61 now, right? So that could have changed things.
So you think the temperature inside here make a difference where this is picking up? Because of
wait, say it again? If this
In the room,
reading, because we're in the room now, it's pretty cool inside. Do you think it makes a difference with the reading that you get from
I mean, yeah, really, it's not really, you're not supposed to be measuring this temperature for your outdoor drive. You're supposed to be outside. And if it's 75 degrees outside, then you're most likely not running your air conditioning. Right? So this makes it. You guys get it. This is that. So let me show you the formula that you would need to know. Go quick. Okay, ready? Your target superheat, if you don't have that chart, then you have to do it by a weird formula. That formula goes like this. Indoor wet bulb, you multiply that by 80. And then you subtract that. Outdoor. Divide all of that by 2. And that gives you target.
So that's indoor wet bulb multiplied by 3 minus 80.
That's the outdoor dry bulb.
Outdoor dry bulb divided by 2. That gives you what you need for a proper charge or unit. That's only if you're using piston or orifice, or capillary tube, right? Something that's a fixed hole. That's it.
So it's
You got
indoor wet
TXV,
bulb
then it's
multiplied by
just
3
subcooled, 10, 12,
minus
like that.
80.
That formula is for both of them. Subcool and superheat.
Say it again?
That formula is for superheat and subcool.
That's for superheat only. Yeah, there is no. I mean, I don't know any other. I don't know what the target subcool. I don't know.
So it's indoor wet bulb multiplied by 3 minus 80.
Minus 8 minus outdoor dry bulb.
Okay.
Alright. So do the one that you just did over here.
And then divide that by
Right. You got indoor wet bulb was 61. 61 times 3. 183, right?
183.
Minus 80 minus
no, this is one. Somebody else watch it.
was 75.
That's
Right?
103.
So that's 155. 183 minus 155.
28 divided by 2, 14. So my gauges said. Right? My gauges said 14. Unit knows best though. If the unit has the charging instructions and it's given the table, follow the table. The unit knows the best thing. But if you don't have that table, then you just got to go by what you know. And that's close enough. Hi, you guys want to play a game? Hi, everybody. Holland? Let's do one, huh? Take a seat.
Oh, do it here?
Yeah, we do it right here. You know, more than very. Let's see who's the real smart thing.
My dad's in music class.
Yeah, I got time.
What class do you guys do? The new, sorry, not you.
Remember that.
Electricity?
Basic. I was saying
Yeah.
that time, bro.
Okay, okay. Gotcha. Alright.
I gotta come off. I'm gonna have to come off. I have 2 phones.
Hey, Kevin, you know 3 minutes.
Oh, Remy, what's your thing?
You got
He's going live now.
Been live. From with the others.
Almost 1 hour.
Oh, yeah, take it back, yeah.
All the things I know, half the stuff I know is I used to did that. We saw that change that.
Okay, you ready? Yeah. I'm gonna turn this thing on. Turn it on, press 1 time. There you go. Alright, basic electricity, huh? Okay, so if I ask, what's the unit of measurement that measures the quantity of electron flow on a wire? Current, yeah. Amperage, yeah, there you go. Alright, that's it. That's the quantity of electron flow in a given part of the wire. So if you clamp it like this, that's when you're measuring current. But if you took that wire and you spun it back around itself and you wrapped it around itself again, now you're getting 2 amounts of the same amount of current. So if you had 1 amp before, now you have 2. You're having 10 times, you get 10 amps. Right? That's fooling the meter into thinking there's a lot more there. Right? Okay. If you've never done this before, go to kahoot.it, type in that game pin right there. Winner of the game gets bragging rights. I'm smarter than everyone else.
I didn't get to brag last time. I was your mama.
Oh, that was great. Yeah. And that's already, right there. Your mama's smarter than you.
Who was your mama? That's was I asked a question, huh?
Extra credit goes to the funniest name. Had some pretty funny names over the years. One of my favorites was White Host Slayer. Very good. White Host Slayer. Because sometimes you get really creative, you know, you can't put in dirty names, so you try, and it usually takes so long for everyone to get in, because like, God, I can't type in ass, so I'm going to have a house, $$. That doesn't work either. You gotta type in at $$. That'll get it.
So we just pick a nickname?
Yeah, just
Play it till
Are you back in already?
Sorry.
Woo! You seem like a 4-year-old.
This is like all the way and somebody's
everybody in? I don't see it. We only got 9
there's definitely not 9 people. This Kahoot, the category, is troubleshooting electric motors. Right? It's trivia. Multiple choice. You know what you do.
Well, they gave me some money.
Only 9 people.
See? What'd you say? It doesn't work. That's a classic. That's probably on the top of the list.
Put these.
Like,
Put
knocking
look,
them all
look,
out.
put D. Look, look.
Nuts with the Z.
Look, put D.
Yeah,
Put
still,
D.
that's definitely
Put
there.
D ZZ. Yeah. These.
There's definitely more. Let's go. You don't have to download the app. Just go to kahoot.it. That's all. You don't even have to type into the W's. Just kahoot.it.
I'm gonna go over this guys with everybody.
Space. No, we got.
Why am I out?
Okay. Basic electricity, guys.
Oh shit. Hold on.
That's a chance on my heart.
It's like basic electricity. Are you basic electricity books?
No,
basic.
sorry.
Okay, bro, something. I can give you a harder one. I don't have it.
Ready?
Hold on.
Oh, this? No, that's transformer. Transformer. This thing right here, yeah, like that. What's this thing? Contact. Right? What's that thing? Heat sequencer. What's this thing? Relay. That thing? Same thing. Relay as well. Right? What about this? What do you call that?
It's a wood.
Bus bar, yeah, bus. Heat sequencer, fan relay. That's another type of fan relay. Right? Okay, everybody in?
That's the heat sequencer.
You're almost in? What's this called?
Snips.
10 snips. Real name, aviation snips. That's what they're really called. Call them aviation snips because they used to cut airplane wings with this. Right? What's this? This is part bender. Tube bender. Everybody know how to use it?
Yep.
Fling it out. Put the tube in. Extends in. Bend the tube. Alright? We'll get to that.
Did you show us these?
What's this thing?
Yeah.
Crimper. What does it do?
From wires.
Anyone know? Yeah, what's that thing on there? Yeah. What's that?
Same thing.
Crimper and stripper. Right? Crimper on the bottom, stripper on the top. Cross cut. Putty knife. Measuring tape. BFS. What BFS stands for?
No.
Big fucking screwdriver. You need your BFS and the big BFA. Big fucking hammer. Right? That one. Adjustable wrench. Also known as monkey wrench. Actually, monkey wrench is a little bit bigger. Little one. How about this one?
Monkey wrench and pipe wrench.
Pipe cutter. Big pipe cutter. Right? And there's another one, mini. And okay, that's all I got. Oh, how about this? Extra credit.
That's a spanner.
Special type though.
Um,
Used for one
Line range.
No, man. No.
It's not about size.
It's a line range.
Look. See this? That is a spanner. It's a regular open end box wrench. Right? That's regular wrench.
It's a line
It's a
range.
service.
This is not. You see the difference there?
What do you think name again, man?
It's a line range.
This
No.
one's specific to our trade and automotive.
It's a line range, no?
What do you line for?
Something automotive.
Yeah, well, if you're thinking automotive, then yes, it's a flare nut for flare nuts. Yeah, because when you're thinking online, you're thinking of the nut that's at the end of a pipe, right? Yeah. So if you look at like in our room, the one that we were just looking on all those TXVs and whatever, there's a little brass nut. That nut gets loosened from this flare nut wrench. That's what that's called. All right, let's do this thing. Ready? 14 players. Let's do it. Here it comes. First question. Yeah. As always. Looky. An open winding, an electric motor. What does that mean?
Wait, an open winding and an electric motor means
I don't understand.
What is that?
Yeah, winding's broken. It doesn't find continuity to it.
Get it on? Get it on?
It run out of time.
Alright, keep it going. Let's go. Next. Raise and lead. If the resistance of the run winding decreases, what happens?
The current is increased. The current is increased.
the motor will draw too much against blue.
Against blue.
This guy's never played before, has he?
No, this is my first time.
You answer on the thing. Alright?
Yeah.
The faster you answer the question, the more points you get.
So this is like a remote control. Like this is your control.
Yeah, it's remote control, yeah.
Okay.
It's like trivia.
Oh, alright.
Alright, you're in the whoever's more is in the lead now. Alright, keep it going.
More! Take it easy, more.
Most electrical problems with an electric motor.
Winding. Right. No, it's not. Open that blue. None of the above.
No, yeah, I can tell. It's just screaming it out. Use the phone, man. Use your fucking phone, John. I gotta get see that? The game fin? Jump in. You stop using your mouth. Jump in. You don't need it.
The next one.
Yeah, I'm second.
Start looking at pictures of my wife. Don't say it, John. Sign in, and you do it like that.
Just reading it out loud.
You're gonna make up a name for you. It's gonna stick the rest of your life.
You fawn. They call me. That's what they call me, dude. Right? No, you're going to almond store. I don't like there's no resistance to unwinding.
Oh, right, if you're listening just before, then you would have known run winding is less. Start as more.
Yeah.
Oh, someone did get these nuts in there, huh?
Is that me? Is that me?
Man, just squeeze them in there.
That's not fair to us. We didn't take that all. Huh? We didn't take all this like information. And now you're being smart. That's a basic class. Right?
I couldn't find it. I was trying to find some more basic. All of that stuff, guys. If you don't have the right amount of voltage, it's gonna that doesn't work, this doesn't work.
Which guy am I?
Better. Fractional horsepower motor is like the ones over there. Moving that air. Moving the air. Right? And that's a fan or indoor blower motor. Like a tenth or a third. Yeah, get rid of the whole thing. Don't waste your time with it. You don't lubricate this. Roll blades, skateboard or whatever. Keep going. Which guy am I? You're not on there, John. You're not good enough.
That's it.
Sorry.
Oh, look, Fran's coming up. There. Oh boy. Should get up bragging rights.
No, I drink a lot of excessive amounts of alcohol.
How'd you know that? True, that's true. Right? If they were way off, then I'd be bad. Yeah, one more. Oh, wow. You guys all gonna let John drink up on you. Come on. Please really not.
True.
Hey guys, look, don't let the guy with the learning disability, you know.
Oh boy, alright. Your resistance. Run. Does everyone remember when I did that? We looked at the motor, I drew a motor, and the faster motor is the one that's got less resistance. Right? If the resistance of the run is lowered, more starting torque. Rigid mounting means metal to metal.
Yeah, dynamic springs on the wall.
No rubber feet. Metal to metal. Grounding strap is that little green wire. Attaches to the piece of metal. You don't need it. You don't need a grounding strap. If it's metal to metal, then the ground is attached somewhere else. And that is going back. Right? But if it's rubber, then you need a grounding strap. Last one. This one I just answered over in the corner over there. When the motor's grounded, check the circuit. Hakeem, wherever you went, we should know that from experience. Right? Okay, who's got the bragging rights? Third place. Woo! That guy. Hey, alright. He's nuts. Had to be. Who's the smartest guy in the room? Smartest guy.
GM's born.
Smartest guy in the room knows he doesn't want to be claimed as the smartest guy. He doesn't want to be seen as that guy, does he? Not miss four.
Take one more.
Alright. You guys want to do another?
Let's
do one more.
Is it break? Let's break, guys. Do it after when we get back.
I'm going breaks.
Break.
Hold on. I forgot I can log on to their Wi-Fi.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back.